Come here for a second. Sit with me. Because I want you to be honest, not with the world, not with her, but with yourself. You say she's just a friend. She says it's just friendship. And yet, you feel something is off. Something doesn't sit right. You notice how she texts you late at night, how she tells you things she doesn't tell other people, how she leans on you emotionally when she's overwhelmed. But then she reminds you, we're just friends. And that's where your self-esteem starts shaking. You begin questioning yourself. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm not good enough for her to see me differently. Listen carefully. Psychology shows us something very important about human bonding. Emotional intimacy is not neutral. According to attachment research, repeated vulnerability and emotional reliance activate the same neurological pathways involved in romantic bonding. When someone consistently chooses you as their emotional outlet, that is not random. But here's the controversial truth. Women are often more emotionally expressive than men. That means what feels deeply intimate to you might feel normal to her. And if you don't understand that difference, you'll either misread the situation or worse, you'll settle for crumbs. This video is not about blaming her. It's not about assuming she owes you anything. It's about teaching you how to read emotional investment without losing your dignity. Because many men don't suffer from rejection. They suffer from confusion. And confusion is dangerous. It keeps you waiting, hoping, overgiving. So today we're going to break this down calmly and clearly. When is it truly just friendship? When is she emotionally investing more than she admits? And more importantly, why are you accepting situations that leave you uncertain in the first place? Let's begin. 1. When she shares emotional space with you, not just time. Let me ask you something directly. If she only sees you as a friend, why are you the one she runs to when she's overwhelmed? Why are you the one she confides in about her fears, her childhood wounds, her relationship disappointments? Time is neutral. Emotional space is not. There's a difference between hanging out and emotionally imprinting on someone. And most men miss this completely. Psychology teaches us that emotional vulnerability builds attachment. Research on attachment theory shows that when someone repeatedly opens up to you in moments of stress, your brain associates each other with safety and relief. That creates bonding, whether she labels it that way or not. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some women will say, I just feel safe with you. And that sounds harmless, even flattering. But safety is the foundation of romantic attraction. It is not the whole structure, but it is the ground it stands on. So the question becomes, is she building emotional safety with you while investing romantic excitement somewhere else? That's where many men get trapped. You become the emotional anchor, the late-night listener, the calm presence, and you convince yourself that because she opens up to you deeply, something romantic must eventually follow. But here's the psychological truth. Emotional intimacy without romantic intention can exist, but it usually requires clear boundaries. If she is sharing deeply vulnerable parts of herself with you, asking for reassurance, leaning on you consistently, and prioritizing your emotional presence, that is not casual. It means you occupy meaningful space in her internal world. Now, that does not mean she owes you romance. Let's be clear about that, but it does mean one of two things. Either she is slowly building emotional attachment, or she is unconsciously using you as emotional support without recognizing the impact on you. And here is the part you must reflect on. Are you comfortable being her emotional safe place if it never evolves into something more? If the answer is no, then the problem is not her vulnerability. It's your boundaries, and that is where real strength begins. 2. When you become her safe place, but not her man. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If she trusts you with her tears, but chooses someone else for her excitement, what role are you actually playing? This is where many men confuse emotional closeness with romantic progress. She calls you when she's stressed. She vents to you about other men. She says, I don't know what I'd do without you. And you think, it's only a matter of time. But psychology doesn't work that way. There's a concept called emotional dependency. It happens when someone relies on another person for comfort, stability, or reassurance, without necessarily feeling romantic attraction. Your presence regulates her stress. You make her feel understood. That creates attachment, but attachment and desire are not identical. This is where self-esteem quietly enters the room. If you believe that being the good guy automatically earns romantic selection, you will stay in situations that drain you. You'll give more attention, more patience, more availability, hoping she eventually realizes. But attraction is not built through silent endurance. Research on attraction dynamics shows that romantic desire often involves uncertainty, polarity, and perceived value. When you are always available, always emotionally cushioning her, you may be reducing your perceived romantic edge, even if you are increasing emotional comfort. And here's the hard question. Are you her safe place because she sees you as a potential partner, or because you are convenient emotional stability? Notice the difference. A woman who is romantically investing will not only share vulnerability, she will create momentum. She will initiate. She will protect the bond. She will clarify the direction. If you are the only one carrying emotional weight while she keeps labeling you just a friend, you must pause. Not to blame her, but to evaluate yourself. Are you staying because you truly accept friendship, or because you're hoping proximity will turn into permission? Calm strength is recognizing when you are over-investing in a role she never asked you to upgrade from. And sometimes the most attractive move you can make is stepping back, not dramatically, not angrily, but with quiet self-respect. Because if you don't define your role, someone else will. 3. If you're confused, it's because you're ignoring the power dynamic. Let's slow this down. If she says, "We're just friends," but her actions feel emotionally intimate, why are you still confused? Confusion is rarely about her words. It's about your fear of losing access. And I'm going to say this calmly, not harshly. Some of you are not confused. You're hopeful. And hope, when not grounded in reality, becomes self-deception. There is always a power dynamic in emotionally uneven situations. The person who wants more has less control. If you're waiting, analyzing, overthinking every text, you've already placed her on a higher emotional pedestal. She senses that. People naturally lean toward where they feel admiration and space, not silent dependency. This isn't criticism, it's awareness. Studies on interpersonal attraction show that perceived value and autonomy increase desirability. When one person over-prioritizes another without clarity, the dynamic shifts. You become emotionally available without emotional direction. Now let me ask you directly, why are you afraid to clarify where you stand? Is it because you don't want to hear no? Or because being close is better than risking distance? Many men choose proximity over clarity, and that's where self-esteem quietly weakens. You tell yourself, I don't want to pressure her. But clarity isn't pressure, it's maturity. If you want something more, it is your responsibility to express that calmly. If she says she doesn't see you that way, you now have information, not rejection, but direction. Here's the wake-up moment. You cannot complain about being in the friend zone if you never stepped out of the friend role. You taught her how to treat you by what you tolerated. And I say this respectfully. If you constantly overextend emotionally, without communicating your intentions, you are participating in your own frustration. Strong men don't guess. They don't hover. They don't orbit. They clarify. They observe. And they adjust. If her actions don't match what you want long-term, your power is not convincing her. Your power is deciding what you accept. And that decision changes everything. 4. When her actions say more, but her words say friend, let me ask you something that might challenge you. If her words say just friendship, but her behavior feels exclusive, which one are you choosing to believe? Most men say they believe actions over words. But when emotions are involved, they suddenly cling to words, because words feel safer. Here's the psychological reality. Human communication is layered. Research in social psychology consistently shows that behavior carries more weight than verbal labels when it comes to emotional investment. So look carefully. Does she prioritize you consistently? Does she create one-on-one time that feels intentional? Does she get subtly protective when other women show interest in you? Does she seek your validation in ways she doesn't seek from everyone else? These are not random behaviors. At the same time, here's where maturity matters. Attention is not always attraction. Some people enjoy emotional closeness without wanting romantic progression. It gives them comfort, identity, even ego reinforcement. So the real question isn't, does she feel something? The real question is her behavior aligned with the kind of relationship you want? If she behaves in ways that mimic emotional exclusivity but refuses clarity, you must evaluate the pattern, not just isolated moments. And this is where many men fail. They collect emotional breadcrumbs and build fantasies from them. A late-night call becomes proof. A jealous comment becomes confirmation. A long hug becomes a sign. But attraction is not built on isolated signals. It's built on consistency and direction. If her actions consistently move the relationship forward, initiating plans, creating shared experiences, increasing physical and emotional closeness, that indicates progression. If her actions oscillate, closeness today, distance tomorrow, that indicates ambiguity. And ambiguity is not romance, it's instability. Calm strength means you observe patterns over time. You don't rush, you don't assume, you don't beg for clarity. You simply ask yourself, are her actions creating momentum, or are they keeping you emotionally attached without forward movement? Because the difference between friendship and something deeper is not intensity, it's direction. 5. The real question isn't what she feels. It's why you're accepting uncertainty. Let me turn the focus gently back to you. Why are you so invested in decoding her feelings, but hesitant to examine your standards? This is where the conversation becomes deeper. Many men obsess over signs: how long she hugged you, how fast she replied, whether she seemed jealous. But underneath all that analysis is one quiet fear: if I step back, I might lose her. And that fear reveals something important. Psychology calls this scarcity mindset. When you believe connection is rare, you tolerate ambiguity. You accept mixed signals. You convince yourself that confusion is normal, but emotionally healthy attraction does not thrive in confusion. It thrives in clarity. A woman who genuinely sees you as a romantic option will not rely solely on subtlety. There will be alignment. There will be investment. There will be movement forward. If months pass and you are still asking yourself, does she feel something? That uncertainty itself is information. Now I'm going to say this calmly. Some of you are not stuck because she's unclear. You're stuck because you're afraid to raise your standards. You don't want to risk losing access to her attention, so you stay in the gray area. You accept emotional closeness without definition. You hope patience will turn into permission. But self-respect changes the equation. When you value yourself, you don't chase emotional hints. You don't compete silently. You don't remain available without direction. You communicate. You observe her response. And if her response doesn't align with what you want, you adjust. Not angrily, not dramatically, just confidently. Because here's the truth most men avoid. If she truly wants you, clarity will not push her away. But if clarity creates distance, then you were never moving forward. You were just standing still. And the strongest position you can ever take is this: I am willing to lose what is unclear to gain what is certain. That mindset doesn't just change your dating life. It changes how people treat you. Let me leave you with something that might feel uncomfortable, but necessary. If you are constantly trying to decode her feelings, analyze her signals, and prove your value, you are already in a weaker position. A woman who truly wants you will not make you live in confusion. And here's the controversial part. Sometimes she really does mean just friendship. And the reason it hurts isn't because she misled you. It's because you ignored what you needed. You don't lose by asking for clarity. You lose by staying where you're unsure. So I want you to do something for me. Comment below and tell me, have you ever stayed in a just friends situation hoping it would turn into more? What happened? I read your experiences, I respond, and sometimes I reach out. You're not alone in this, but it's time you stop settling for confusion.